I think that's where a lot of folks that have this fantastic idea and really want to bring it to market, they think this is a brand new way. It's the best way to solve whatever problem this is, or it's the best way to do whatever this does. This is so new. It's an entirely new category. And as we sit in 2024, more often than not, that's actually not the case. It might be a better way of solving an existing problem, but it often doesn't address a net new problem or offer like just something that's not been seen before. Because for a category to be new, to create a category, you're selling the problem as much as you're selling the solution, to be quite honest.
Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you are here, say hello. Say hello. It's the beauty of being live. Otherwise, why bother? So make this worth it for both Kelly and I. Say hello, let us know you're here. And most importantly, we so look forward to your questions, because at the end of the day, what matters for me personally is that you walk away feeling like you can actually go do a thing. Like whatever it is we're talking about, you can say, yes, I can apply this and I'm going to go do it and it's going to be spectacular. So let's make sure you feel that way and chime on in. If we don't get to your questions live, because maybe there's too many, that would be a great champagne problem to have. We will come back to them post and make sure your questions are answered. So don't be shy. Don't be shy. This episode was brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps cybersecurity and data management platforms get found via SEO and digital ads. And I'm so grateful for that sponsor. So thank you, MKG. Kelly O'Dwyer is our guest today. She's a highly experienced marketer and communications leader with expertise in creating full service programs, including media and analyst relations, internal and executive communication. Oh man, internal and executive communication is like half the battle right there. Demand generation, event and trade show planning, strategic campaign and product launch communications planner, and social media outreach. Man, she spans the gamut. And wow, do we need that today, because she is going to help us understand what category creation means as it relates to the cybersecurity industry and when to and not to go there. Key.
Big time.
Key. It's key. Kelly, this was a very quick sort of summary of your LinkedIn profile, but I want to hear from you of your journey and your story of how you got there. So bring us along. Take us
Sure. Let me paint you a word picture. I was telling Carrie earlier that my 8-year-old is doing his first public speaking performance, his first speech that he's written and performing in front of his school today. So I told him, paint a word picture. So I'll do that too. So thank you for having me on. And I think my career has been kind of a neat one. So I started out very strong in media relations, worked for an agency. It was great. You know, you get that kind of rigorous practice that you need in connecting the dots between what your clients offer and the actual problems in the marketplace, those bigger picture issues. So I was able to, as I grew and went in-house then, to parlay those skills and that expertise into broader marketing pieces, including analyst relations, where then it becomes a matter of, okay, how does all of this align to what's going on in the marketplace, trends that are coming up, what competitors are doing, what those enterprises or smaller companies, what they're seeing, the pain points that they're raising. So that really lends itself nicely to doing a whole bunch of things in marketing. And a tip of the hat to my fellow small company scale-up startup peeps. You know, that's how we do it all. You gotta, any function that you do, any hat that you wear, it's in your best interest to make sure that it certainly serves all of the other pieces that you're responsible for. So that's really what I do at Axiomatics, is whatever we need, wherever I can jump in, happy to figure it out if it's not something I do already.
I'll be there. I'll be there for you. How can you just bridge the gap for us? Like, I feel like cybersecurity in particular has sort of a moat around it of
Yes.
like, you either happen to slip in behind the back door or like intentionally, I want to be part of this thing. Which one were you? Did you happen to like have an interesting expertise that found your way into cyber, or were you like, this is where I want to be?
That's such a great question. So I think in the very early pieces of my career, I got the opportunity, and this is going to show how old I am. I had a client where we went on a media tour, like an old, oldie time press tour, and they were a cyber company, and he was able to talk about perimeter defenses and using the analogy of the Chicago fires back in the day and looking at that. And I was fascinated. I was hooked. So any opportunity I had to work on cyber campaigns, I absolutely did that. Then took a break, did some other areas in tech and some B2C stuff as well, which was fascinating and illuminating. And I think prepared me pretty well because B2C moves pretty fast, and so does cyber. And then just kind of fell back into more specific the identity and then the data security spaces, which again now all of a sudden are identity and access management has been around forever, but now it's the shiny penny again. So it's fast and furious. It's exciting. There's never a dull moment, and it's evolving. Not just the spaces, but how you market in cybersecurity is evolving at such a quick pace. I find that exhilarating to always have a new challenge to look at.
I like want to go on a tangent really hard. I'm debating. All right, we're going to go on a mini tangent because the blessing of you getting into cyber so early is that you have seen it all, and it is a shiny penny right now. And you said it's shiny again. So how has it somewhat quickly, if you can, paint us that word picture again that you're so good at, how has it evolved in that way since you've joined to where it is now? What has that sort of evolution of cybersecurity been in your eyes?
Gosh, that's such a good question, Carrie. I think, and this really aligns very well actually to category creation, because I think when I was first starting out, and I wasn't thinking about things in those terms, obviously, right? You're just thinking about how can I grow my skills. It was just about, the network and logging on to the network. And the messages were very much you should be secure, and more basic like that, because it was still trying to get those pieces up and running, and get that kind of mind frame, that high, almost that corporate hygiene of you need to implement these pieces at every stage, just getting that down pat. And as people started to do that, what we're seeing now is cycling of some of those trends then, because I certainly remember back when I worked for Quest Software in its first iteration, the whole idea of the Internet of Things and digital transformation, these were newer topics. And now they're really coming around again. We talk about them maybe in different ways, but it's about the same types of things, people having workarounds so that IT or security pieces don't cause them friction, or make their day-to-day activities more onerous or time consuming, because none of us have that time. And now with the whole forcing function, I think of the pandemic, that may kind of forced everybody to mature their digital transformation initiatives. Now everybody's playing catch up with security, whereas before it was just about getting it done and having it ready. Not all companies were there from the security standpoint, and now they have to be. And now they're supporting a workforce that works everywhere all of the time. Sometimes it's in office, sometimes it's at home, sometimes it's both, sometimes it's solely one or the other. But you have to be able to ensure that all of those identities, humans, machines, endpoints, mobile devices, all of that all of them are having secure interactions with the data and the assets that are most critical.
I also feel like a lot of us sort of felt like in the early days that they were only after the big guns because it was so much harder back then. So it was like it could never happen to me. And
Yeah.
that's just not the case now. We are all at risk. And you don't even know what the risks are until it happens. So being at the forefront of it and being in the know feels like it's more of what people are searching for versus before of like, I'll be
Yeah.
fine. It'll
Well,
never happen to me.
it's so true, because even when you were talking, back in the day, even a few years ago, as 5 or 6 years ago, when we were talking about, from those of us doing cyber PR, the Target breach and the Marriott breach, those were kind of moments where you could build a reactive response program and go out and execute against that. Now there are just so many breaches on a continuous basis that it's a lot harder. You can't build those kind of standalone commentaries against one, because there's just so many you can comment all the time, and there's so much noise. So it really requires a different approach, a different take, more than, well, this is what they should have done, because there's no it it's the wild west and a whole new frontier, which is exciting, and also I think anxiety driving for marketers.
It's bigger. It's
Yeah.
so much bigger. And it's more on an individual level too, of not just trying to keep a company safe, but how to keep your individuals up to date and in the know and safe to then protect the bigger entity. It's never ending. All right. Before we get into the topic, which is really going to lend itself to how we message this and how we help folks think about their product and the challenges that their audiences face, let's first start with a challenge you're currently facing, Kelly. You're human, life is hard, and you're a cybersecurity marketer. So for you in particular right now, what's in your way? What's really, really hard right now?
Oh my goodness. Well, other than ensuring that my children sleep through the night, which we have talked about, because that is a, whew, it's like your brain is wearing a blanket, then, right, the next day. It's good times, good times. I think the biggest thing, Carrie, is, I work for a company we're small but mighty, but that means we have to be very thoughtful and pragmatic in all of our choices, so that we can do the things that help us rise above all of the noise in the marketplace right now. And look at, okay, what if we want to do these three things, what are the deliverables going to be? How do we measure success? What's the return on investment going to be? How is this going to drive revenue? How do we want to measure it? What does that mean for everything else that we want to do? And all of those things, because I think for smaller companies, and folks in bigger companies too, there's so much that you want to do. And you think, gosh, this would be really great and really creative, that trying to pinpoint those things is really challenging. And coupling that with the fact that you want to look at those buyers that you're going after and reach them in a really personal and meaningful way is a challenge. It's a massive challenge, because they're just getting inundated with stuff from cybersecurity vendors, and some of it is great and pertinent, and some of it just isn't, and it becomes, I think it's a massive challenge for them to have to dig through all of that.
Oh, I want to unpack all of that, but hopefully our topic today will weave some of this through, between trying to connect personally with our audience, which is tough to do given the folks, CISO folks and
Right.
IT practitioners who don't really want to deal with marketing and sales, but know that at some point they have to. We are a necessary evil in their eyes right now. Maybe we could change that. We're all working on it. But at the end of the day, that is what the current struggle for all of us is, including you, it sounds like, Kelly. And so that personalization layer of I see you and I hear you and I'm with you is so important. And doing that on a marketing level, that's a bit more broad, and, those broad strokes of intent versus that personalization is an interesting topic that I look forward to coming back to in our conversation. Let's talk about building a category. Let's talk about categorization to begin with. Like, what does it mean to even, what is it, bring us, like, we're going to start way at the back in the beginning of, like, what it even means to have a category. So start at the
That's a
beginning.
good, of course. And that's such a great starting point, because I think what a category is has evolved over the years, because the number of categories has really exploded, right? So I think probably the easiest example, and the one that people will resonate with that will resonate most with people, would be Uber. So when you look at what they did, because Uber definitely created a category, is they solved a problem that people didn't know that they had. And at the end of in any conversation, really, when it comes down to it, that's the simplest explanation you can give for what is a category. It is a new awareness of a problem and an associated solution that's net new to the market. It's not better than, because if something already exists, then it already exists. But this is something entirely new. So for Uber, people, if you think back to when you go to San Francisco pre-Uber, you would just bake it into your day when you arrived there, or really any big city, that you have to stand in line and get a cab, right? At the
Wave them
airport. And I
down.
remember exactly going to CES and standing in line at Las Vegas airport. That's going to be 45 minutes, hour and a half. It was frustrating. It was annoying, but you didn't think about, gosh, would there be another way? You just thought, well, this stinks, but this is what it is. And then Uber came along and said, hey, isn't that maddening? Do you understand how many other things you could be doing with that time? What if you could just call somebody and they'd come pick you up and take you where you needed to go, and you could call them as you were getting off the plane or as you were waiting for your luggage? And all of a sudden people were like, hey, yeah, this is a problem of wasted time. And that was it was completely re-engineering the way people thought about things. And Salesforce is another great example, right?
Hold on,
Software is dead. Go
I
ahead.
do want to pause there, Kelly, because it's interesting. It's a nuance,
Yes.
right? The taxi business already existed. I remember standing on the streets of New York City in the pouring down rain, praying to goodness that a taxi with a light on was going to go by me and not 50 other people were going to be around me trying to get the same damn taxi. Like, I remember those days. But the taxi business existed. So how is this a category creation in that it's just another way of hailing a I'm oversimplifying the malarkey out of it, but it's just like of hailing a taxi. You're just doing it on your phone versus standing out in the cold and the rain trying to get it done.
It's that's an excellent point, Carrie. So they created the category of transportation, mobile transportation you can track, essentially. And I'm simplifying that, but that was kind of it. And probably a better example for cyber, where there have been flippity jillion new categories at least attempted, would be around the cloud access security broker category, which was really pioneered a bit by Gartner, but really by Sky High Security. And around that whole, I talked earlier about the Internet of Things conversation. And it became, where people really, companies didn't know what was going on in their clouds, because people were bypassing IT to just put stuff up in the cloud to be able to share it better and do more with it, because they didn't want to be hassled with that friction. So IT didn't have a good handle on that. And the CASB market grew to give them a way to wrap their arms around that. So it really brought that, like, oh, this is a problem that you don't exactly know you have. We're going to quantify this for you. It's much bigger than you think it is. And here's how you can solve it.
So it's taking a very big, broad problem. Transportation. I need to get from point A to point B. And then, okay, I can take a car to get there. And then, okay, I can go on my phone and actually pick this thing. And similar in cyber. Cybersecurity is huge, right? You have the password problem. You have your all the devices problem. I mean, the list goes on in terms of entry points of how people can come in and access your information. At the end of the day, people are trying to get to your data and exploit it in some fashion. But how we go about doing that essentially creates the category. Yeah?
Exactly. And I think where people tend to get tripped up is a category is not a product. Because a lot of times, a category can become, and often does become, synonymous with a particular vendor, but it is not a product. And I think that's where a lot of folks that have this fantastic idea and really want to bring it to market, they think this is a brand new way. It's the best way to solve whatever problem this is, or it's the best way to do whatever this does. This is so new. It's an entirely new category. And as we sit in 2024, more often than not, that's actually not the case. It might be a better way of solving an existing problem, but it often doesn't address a net new problem or offer like just something that's not been seen before. Because for a category to be new, to create a category, you're selling the problem as much as you're selling the solution, to be quite honest.
You are. You are. I think it is about the problem solution and the unique way that you are solving that problem. I'm going to go to the typical Apple approach, right? They have a VR headset. Let's all recognize that it's a VR headset, but they can't call it VR because that is not the Apple way, and they have to approach the problem differently. And so they're calling it spatial computing, which is technically a new category. Whether we all buy into it in the long run, I don't know. We'll see. But it's this idea, right, of like taking a thing, it's VR headset, and translating it into what some of the problems with VR headsets. I don't know if you've worn them, but man, they are claustrophobic. And if you're in a really scary game, they are terrifying. You can't see around you. So you don't know if you're like walking into your desk or like backing into something. And it's not compatible to the real world. It's just something you do to escape it.
Right.
And so Apple's trying to solve the problem of that by creating spatial computing where you are wearing a VR headset, but thanks to all of its sensors and fanciness, you can actually see your environment as you're walking through it, and it's using it technically as a computer versus an escapism through gaming. So that's another example. I love Apple, but I'm not sure about this one. We'll see. That's category creation. That's what it means to be in a category. And I love this because I think this is an important topic of really defining it, of coming back to like, I feel like Apple's sort of doing it for Apple's sake because they're Apple and they can. So good for them. Yeah. But we're not all Apple.
Certainly not. No.
So let's talk about the nuance of your product. You're in cyber and you're trying to figure out where you fit. I mean, that's really what it is, right? It's how do you get in front of the right folks to say the thing that's going to help them understand how you solve their problem. When does category creation come into that? Is that like first thing you define, you're going into a new category, you're going to define this thing, or is it more about what we're talking about? Like, help me, like, where do you begin on this journey of even knowing that you need to be in a new category or create one?
I think not enough people, to your point, pay enough attention to this part. So it's really about understanding what is the problem? What is the problem I solve? And it sounds so straightforward, like, right? You should be able to quickly and easily answer that. But it's surprising how many people can't do that because we become wrapped up in technical benefits and feeds and speeds and price points and all of that the race for features. And it's great. All of those things are fantastic. But it's about the problem. And if you don't know what problem it is you're solving, you really can't even start to talk about whether you need to create a new category or drive a wedge in an existing, unseat an existing category leader. So that's really where you need to start. What is the problem that you're going to solve? And there are so many places where you can look for that insight. If you're a larger company and this is going to be a net new division or a foray into something that your current customers haven't seen before, but you're looking at some traction, maybe you have some friendly customers or partners you can talk to about these types of problems or pain points. Analysts are another great resource there because you can talk to them about, okay, what are the what are the pain points that you're hearing, the challenges that you're hearing from your clients when they're having inquiry conversations with you? And how often do these come up? And are you seeing any trends? Is there a question that you're getting all the time or not? And that's often kind of I find that sometimes we think of analysts as, okay, we're going to go show the analysts our new product and tell them why this is a great thing, and then they'll write about us. And there are so many other ways in which you can use analysts and their insight to benefit what you're doing. You don't have to agree with everything they say, but you can take that as an important information point. So those are just kind of two areas. You can also talk to influencers, generally speaking, and all of that kind of stuff. Do some surveying, and it depends on what you have available, but it will start to paint a picture for you as to what are the pain points out there and what is the problem that really needs to be solved. So that, I would say, is kind of that first critical question that you need to answer before you even start down the category creation path.
It's so true to understand the pain, the problem you truly solve in the product. I'm always curious about going back to the original founders. Why'd you build this thing?
Yeah. Exactly, right?
What pain did you have? Why is this here now? Because then everybody sort of piles on. They're like, well, you could do this with it, and that with it, this with it. But it's like, yes, I'm sure that this thing could live on in so many ways. But like, why did you create? I had a wonderful podcast a few months ago. I was dabbling with having a founder show. Maybe I'll come back to it. I hope to come back to it. But I had these wonderful founders who started a product around the product is actually called Credentials because it's about boat, people who come and work on boats and being able to manage all of their documentation and making sure it's up to date and easily. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But when they got it in the hands of a bunch of different people, everybody was like, oh, well, this industry could use it for that. This industry could use it for that. And, what about payroll? And then they started piling on features that was like, it got overblown. And then they came back to like, well, why did we build this thing? Like, and how do we work with people who own boats who have to hire people and getting back to like the heart of the thing? And man, it's so easy to get caught up in like, but what could it be?
Yep. Yep. And what did you see that other people don't? Where is that white space? That's such a great point, because they're even thinking of the Axiomatics founders, they saw that this was going to become a thing, that authentication was going to need that next step. And they saw that a while ago. So that's a great point.
Stay on the cutting edge. You got this, Axios. Yeah. Let's talk about that next step. So you truly understand the problem. Let's assume people have done their homework and their research. They've sat down with the customer. Yes, you've called up the customer as a marketer and you said, tell me more. Please tell me you've all done that. I hope you have. And now you understand like the true pain of what's happening. So how do you figure out whether this is something brand new or it already exists?
So I think that's the next question becomes, how is this currently solved? And you can go back to those same sources to ask those same questions. How are people solving this problem right now? And that's going to give you a couple of different pieces of information. The first is obviously how they're solving it now. And maybe the answer could be they're not, that this is just a pain and people are, we're just going to live with this. Or they're cobbling something together that's not perfect, but does the job okay. And that is problematic if that ends up being the answer. And how ready they are to accept a new solution, because that piece is a really important one too. If they're okay with either living with it because it's not painful enough to warrant an urgent change, or they've been able to kind of string together, acceptable or satisfactory solution, the market may not be motivated to do something different. They might be, but you're going to know that this is going to take a really dedicated push to really hammer home the pain of that problem and why you need to solve it in a new way. So this is really where you're peeling back the onion and you're getting into the guts of what you need to do next.
And is that through like, how do you find that information? Is that through customer research? Is that through,
Yes.
that seems qualitative
It
versus quantitative.
it is, and it's different sources as well, right? So are there you can reach out to partners and channel resellers to say, okay, what where are the gaps here? And again, analysts will let you know. Um, Analysts will let you know kind of what, well, people are kind of just accepting that what they're doing with XYZ is probably good enough, and they haven't budgeted to do anything further. So it gives you a bit of another, okay, this is going to be a bigger battle if it's not something that I can attach to their priorities or their budget priorities in the future years. That's going to be a struggle. I need to make this pain really real that people would want to action on it. So it's looking out. I think the big key, Carrie, is at that point, once you've got the information about what the problem is, you need to look outside at the market as a whole and understand how big of a pain is this problem and versus the way in which it is currently solved or not solved. And that'll give you a sense of timing. Is the market ready for a new category, for a new way of thinking about this?
I love that. Of like, is this already in some aspect being solved? Maybe not quite right yet, and we're all figuring it out, but can I layer into something that already exists, or do I have to go build it? We actually had a client that had this pain of they wanted to go out and build their own category around something called wire data. They were a cybersecurity company, and they were thinking about, they had this hardware that was connecting information from one end to another and across the wire. How was that information sort of trying to be interceded? It was, a few years ago. And so it's this concept of wire data. And we were like, well, it's cybersecurity. Like, you're trying to go off and create your own thing outside of cyber to like define it. But people are searching for this problem inside of cybersecurity. And so once they made that shift and acknowledged that this environment already existed, they were just solving it in a unique way, everything changed. Their keyword mapping changed, their volume changed, the way that they could go after competitors changed, and for the good. Like, they went off and got sold to a company for over $900 million, right? Like, right. So I think there's stories on both ends. Let's talk about the creation part. That didn't work out for them. It made more sense for them to fold into existing. And at the time, cyber, XDR, and then they sort of like, fell into a subcategory of cyber once we helped them pivot. But help me understand, within cyber, building out a brand new category, having done this, what the benefits are there and when it makes sense. Because it feels like if you're the first to the game, there's pros and cons.
It is a big advantage to be first if you hit that timing right, which is no small thing, but let's assume that you've got that going and you feel like the time is now. More than ever, you kind of have to act really quickly because anyone, right, can stand up a digital property and say anything. So you've got to be able to have be fierce, be fast, and be focused to be able to get this across the line. You also have to make sure that everybody is all in. This is not something that somebody can do as a side of desk project. This is not something that marketing can just go off and do. And I think that's another thing where a lot of times marketing is tasked with, go off and create me a category and make sure I get to, that there ends up being all this that I'm the defined leader and whatever this is. And that's not, marketers may be able to win with that as a mandate, run far. So it has to start from the top down, that everybody is all in, that that this is going to require dedicated resources and a dedicated budget, particularly right now, because the cybersecurity market as a whole is so crowded. You've got to be able to differentiate yourself, and you can't do that without some budget. It can't just be a line item where there's a whole bunch of other things that you're already doing, and it's a side of desk job for your head of product marketing. That's not the way this is going to work. This has to be something where everybody is on the same page. They're wholly invested in getting this done, and you're able to have some kind of big bang pushes here. And that can look like a variety of different things, but really it's that kind of mindset and that understanding that managing of expectations internally that this requires, and everybody signing on. It requires budget and resources, and then you can start to take those steps and plot what success is going to look like in 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, 24 months, because it's also not a short-term thing. If you're setting up, and I'm sure you've seen this, if you're looking to set up a new category and you're saying, okay, well, we're hoping to recognize revenue on this in 3 months or 6 months, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen.
It's interesting because it feels like a bigger mountain to climb, but it's steeper and a little faster. So if you can get it right, right time, right budget, everybody on board, you can get there faster because the lightning happened to strike. That's a big gamble, though. So how do you know it's the right gamble to make?
I think there's always an element of art versus science with this, and sometimes you'll hit it perfectly if you've got all of that information and if everybody's aligned. And sometimes it might just take a little bit longer. And as long as those expectations are clearly managed, that this is a long-term goal, that you have smaller milestones that you're going to hit, you ultimately will be successful in some way. You have to be mindful of how you're measuring that success, and understanding that for every Uber or Salesforce out there, there's millions of companies that aren't, and that if your company isn't the right fit to create a new category, or you're not sure you can get all of these pieces aligned, that doesn't mean the other option is do nothing. There are still lots of other things that you can do that might, to your point, with a couple of the examples that you've given, be just as, if not more impactful for what you're looking to do. Because it's looking at what is that ultimate outcome? What is it I want to do here? Because category creation is an outcome, but what is the broader thing that you're looking to do, that taking your founder's vision, or whoever came up with this, and bring it to the right audience in the right way at the right time.
It is a full pivot too. When this client ExtraHop decided to make this pivot into cybersecurity outside of what they thought was wire data, it was an all hands on deck moment. They had a fork in the road, and it had to come from the top, and everyone had to get on board.
Yes.
And data was a big part of that, right? We were coming to them and saying, the problem people are searching for that you already solve is already a thing. And we could just so it's not that competitive yet. We can slot very nicely into it, and we can meet you where you are. So I love that we're talking about, when it makes sense, the right data that you need, and that everyone's got to be on board. Because if they're not, and you have a rogue salesperson who's using different messaging,
or a rogue senior executive, which can also unfortunately sometimes be the case, it's problematic because you've got somebody kind of chipping away at that. So it's difficult, and it's even more difficult now because there are so many more smaller vendors and larger vendors looking to get in, particularly into cybersecurity, that it's really difficult to differentiate yourself. So I think sometimes people then think, well, if I can create this whole new category, I have a niche that's going to differentiate my company and my solution automatically. So I don't have to worry about that, because marketing can do that for me. And the difference is that you can actually go in and unseat a category leader that might be resting on their laurels, or going through, some churn with customers, or some other type of turbulence.
We're better together. right?
Exactly. You can do a whole bunch of other things to still get that end goal of creating mind share and revenue and getting a really strong and loyal customer base that grows and grows.
I was just having this conversation with my husband about this. He was talking about a company he sat down with today, and they were talking about what they wanted to do. And he's like, this feels like a feature versus a product. But it's coming to that, right? Like people are seeing between the lines of like what the industry still needs and isn't there yet. And so they're creating this one very tiny, and I said to him, I was like, they should go do that because then they could, it sounds like it's an easy sell into something bigger, right? Which for some people could be a great exit strategy. So,
Yeah.
but it does feel like the industry as a whole is sort of moving in that direction of finding these holes of like, yes, you have this bigger product that does most of these things, but there's just this little thing missing. And if I could just fix that for you and plug it in, we're good to go.
Exactly. Exactly.
Are you seeing that across? I mean, I'm only seeing this in like a, in my little frame that's over here. You have a bigger window? Are you seeing that, or am I speaking crazy?
No, and I think that's everywhere, and it's interesting, and particularly in cyber where things are moving so quickly, you're seeing a lot of spots where people are thinking, "Oh no, well, should I do this, and how should I buy, and what do I want to do? But I already made this massive investment in this one solution, so what what can I do this? What can I do about this? So how is buying this new thing going to help me when I just spent $1 million over here? So it's all of these different types of messages and just kind of figuring out, okay, blocking out the noise. What is the problem that we're hearing here, and how are we uniquely positioned to solve that problem?
Sounds like buyers are having multiple problems.
Oh yeah, I think so. And I'm not a cybersecurity buyer, but in looking at what they have to look at, even if you look at big broad categories like zero trust, like it is a behemoth of a thing to be able to do and to solve. And you've got vendors out there saying, I have a zero trust solution, but there's really no such thing. It's a broader philosophy and strategy, and it's going to take a number of solutions that ideally all work together. But then what does that look like? And does that mean you have to replace the things that you already have or buy a whole bunch of new things?
And then the subscriptions and the things you're tied into and how.
Exactly. And all those legacy applications that you already have, and what do you do with those? So, I worked ages ago for a company that had a legacy product, and it was still humming along, but they were always reticent to make any changes because the people who had coded that years and years and years ago were no longer there. So they had no idea if they made a change to the code, whether the entire thing would fall down with a clunk and we'd never be able to fix it again. So there's a lot of those things that, I'm not a coder, I don't think about that stuff, but there's a lot of those kind of little problems out there that people are having to deal with as enterprises get more and more complex. That there's not just one like do this and everything will be fine type of scenario, which makes it challenging. It makes it challenging for us as marketers too, because that's I just spent 2 minutes talking that through. Nobody wants to hear a solution that's 2 minutes long.
No, it's true. It's true. Let's talk about, let's move into solution mode. We've talked a lot about the problems. The problem is clear and real, and it's true. And it's like, which path you got a fork in the road here. And it's a matter of, do you disrupt an existing category, or you create your own? And it is definitely an all or nothing sort of moment when you're faced with this. And so, making that right decision is imperative. Let's assume you've decided to create a new category, because I feel like we all can join an existing category and mostly figure that. I'm sure there's some nuance and another podcast to help us navigate that. But for time's sake, let's talk about creating a brand new category and saying, okay, we're doing something different that nobody else is doing. Where do you start with that? I'm imagining it's messaging, but nobody's searching for this thing. So how do you create, I'm going to use that word that not everybody agrees with, but awareness, brand affinity for this thing that nobody knows about when you're not Apple?
Right? Yeah. I think it's ultimately looking at who are the people who can help you make this quicker, make this faster, who already have good followings and talk to the people that you ultimately want to be purchasing. Who are they talking to? Who are they listening to? There's influencers, analysts, media, all sorts of people like that. That's who you really want to sell the problem to. Because if you get those influencers to buy into that problem, they'll be more inclined to say, and you know what? Here's a potential solution that you should look at. Even if they're not naming you by name, although hopefully they do, if they say you need to look for something that does X, Y, and Z, and you do X, Y, and Z, it's validating what you're able to solve for. So those are the folks, because if you're trying to push this rock up the hill all by yourself, it's going to be very difficult to do so if you're not Apple or, another massive. Exactly, because I already know Apple, so there's already a level of trust there with whatever they are going to show to me that's new. I'm probably going to pay attention to it. If I don't buy it, maybe not, but I'm going to pay attention to it. For smaller companies or net new companies, they don't have that kind of buffer. So if you can leverage that kind of community of influencers and analysts and bring them in early and have them walk with you on this journey and have them buy into that problem and why this is the solution, you're going to have much more runway and be more successful because they have the audiences that it's going to take you a heck of a lot longer to build.
You and join other audiences. Yeah, it's that. I'm working with a company right now who is, I'm working with a company right now who is building fusion microreactors.
Ooh.
I know. So it was this moment of, do we go rogue and talk about this new energy thing that we're creating?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we join the fusion community that's starting to get some traction and talk about a different way of doing fusion? I feel like fusion isn't quite big enough to start carving out our own category just yet. So I'm saying let's jump on the fusion train and talk about why we're different at the same time, because the PR momentum that people are already getting around that we don't have to cultivate because it's just naturally happening. And there's only so many companies within that category currently that while we're a name among a couple, it's still less than many.
Right.
So it's still making a splash that we can cultivate and ride sort of the tails on before we will have to go off and say, but we're micro and we're mobile and we don't have to be a big power plant and we're doing something different, right? Like that moment will come, but in the meantime, we're not there yet. And so sort of jumping on the existing fusion train has done wonders in that. And I think that's what you're saying around like choosing your moment and those existing influencers. I think that's key. Like you need people to trust. Kelly, like, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I've been on my high horse a little bit and preached to the choir somewhat to maybe, I feel like people who follow me on LinkedIn are maybe sick of me saying this, but like we have lost our buyers as marketers because they don't want to deal with us. We are a necessary evil that they like will have to come to at some point because they have a problem and they need a solution and we happen to like be there at the right time in the right place. I think we need to change that. And I love what you're saying of like finding these folks who we can bring along and help cultivate those case studies and those stories of like, no, we're not just vaporware and we really are trying to do something good here in the world. And you can trust us, which I know is really hard as a cybersecurity person.
It is, but you know what, Carrie, the example you just gave is so perfect because the other part of this is that you also have to understand, not only where the market is right now, but your vision for the future, because it gives you an important validation that, hey, we not only understand the problem that everybody's dealing with right now, but we see that this is how this is going to evolve as we go forward. Because that's the other critical piece of that. You'll see there's lots of examples of people who've created categories and have kind of sat there on the category and they really haven't had a vision for where this market is going to go. And another competitor comes up and eats their lunch because they're saying, look, these are the problems that are going to arise, and this is how this is going to roll out in the future, and we've got to solve for that. This is how we're going to align ourselves to solve for that in the future. So it's like, that's why it's a long game, and you're going to come up against, the 3-month mark or the 5-month mark or whatever it is, and you're going to think, ugh, this just feels like, I don't feel like we're moving forward fast enough. Or maybe it's just me, because I always want to be going faster and doing more and having, let's get it done. And this just isn't that. You've got to be all in for the long haul and see where things are going. So even if people are saying, I don't know what you're talking about in the future, but this is my problem right now. And you can say, absolutely, totally get that. Here's how your problem in the future is going to, spin up to where this vision is going. That's something we're actively doing at Axiomatics right now, is saying, look, we see how this is going. Here's how authorization is going to kind of evolve in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's tough to be able to sell people on that when they're living in the day-to-day. But I think you have to have kind of both those sides.
I feel like you need to see into the future of what's coming as the marketer and the brand. And you need to create, I call them lily pads of like, what jumps are we going to need to make towards that? Your audience isn't there yet, but we see it. And how do we ensure that they're going to be safe on the other side by building them this roadmap that it's sort of like a PLG motion almost of like, let's focus on the existing problem they have right now. And then let's be ready for them because we know that that's the next thing to come. And that is what, to me, building a category is seeing into the future of like, we're not there yet. We're talking about we've landed somebody on the moon and we're talking about going to space, but like to have colonies on the moon.
Yeah.
How are we going to power that, right? Nobody's there yet, but they are trying to think about how they're going to power that cruise ship that's sitting out in their harbor, blowing that black smoke, right? And one is going to lead to the other. So yes, to the seeing into the future and being, helping people along the way in that. If you jump to the end, you will lose them. Give us a last nugget here, Kelly, for folks who are building a category. Let's assume that they figured out the problem. They've dialed in their messaging. They see the lily pads are starting here now, and then they're going to build up to that. How do you, it is the long game, but also there needs to be momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you create, what are sort of the activation pieces that you put in place to create some of that initial momentum? And I know it's going to depend on the brand, but for your experience, as always, but from your experience of the brands you worked on, or maybe for, the brand you're working on right now, what are sort of some of those activation pieces that you're immediately putting in place to saying, I see it into the future, and these are the things we need to do right now to start building up to it?
Always be listening. Always be listening. So listen to your customers, but understand too that if they're current customers, you've already solved their problem. So it's one proof point. Listen to prospects. Understand if there's a gap. Listen to analysts. Just keep listening and refining, but stay focused. Don't let anything unseat you. If somebody else comes along that's talking about something over here, let them do their thing and stay focused on what it is you want to do and what your outcome is meant to be. So, stay focused, have regular touch points with all of your key stakeholders to ensure everybody is crystal clear on what the goals are short term and long term and the progress you're making against those goals. So I think, Carrie, if I were to distill it down, it's constant communication and keep listening. Those would be the two things.
I think that's so crucial because we can't make decisions in the dark, Kelly. We need the data, and you're only going to get the data through those two touch points, listening and then understanding what other people are seeing while they're listening. So
exactly.
Yes to that. Oh, so good. Kelly, where can people find you if they want to learn more about category creation, your history, and the clients you've worked with and continue to work with? Where are you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm --Kelly L as in llama, M as in, me. So feel free to connect with me. I love how LinkedIn is evolving. I know that's probably like a whole other episode, but it's super cool and super fun. And I learned so much from following LinkedIn. But I'd love to engage and have good conversations. And also, I'm a member of the Cybersecurity Marketing Society, and it is such a fantastic group of folks. I've learned so much from all of them and continue to learn and share and grow. And I can't recommend it enough. If you're in cybersecurity marketing, you absolutely have to be a member of the society. So go there and do that.
And if you're going to be there, if you're going to be at the CyberCon marketing event in Philadelphia in December, hit us up because Kelly and I will be there with bells on, and we look forward to meeting you in person. I can't wait to meet Kelly in person. It's going to be awesome.
Right? We've already got an entirely new offshoot of conversations to do over cheesesteak. So I love this.
Cheesesteak chat. We're going to make it happen. Yep. And if you'd like to join us at Pat's, not Gino's, we welcome you.
Right. Hot take right there.
I'm from Philly. I get to say that. Or Jim's. Jim's should be open now on South Street. So one of those, we will let you know where we will be, and you can come join us for a cheesesteak chat. We look forward to it. Kelly, before we go, you are more than a marketer. You're human, and life is hard and different and new these days. Yay, COVID. Or not, however you want to paint that picture. But I feel like we figured out how to live with this thing, to however much we can live with this thing. And we're looking forward to the future, at least trying to. So for you right now, as things have settled down and we figured out how to live with this, what are you most looking forward to in 2024? Other than your kids sleeping through the night, which we are all dreaming about.
Oh, can't happen fast enough. 2023 in particular, Carrie, was a challenging year for my family. My husband was diagnosed with leukemia. He's now in remission. But he's a force of nature, certainly. But it really taught me that life isn't short. You never know what's going to happen. So you need to just take advantage of those moments. So to that end, I'm super excited. Next week, I have time off. I'm taking my 70-something-year-old mother to Las Vegas, which is her city of choice. I'm looking forward in 2024 to continuing to learn and grow professionally, but to taking advantage of those moments personally and being present, being there, and just enjoying the ride.
I just want to cheer you on to all of those things. I just saw an amazing post. Oh, it was a cybersecurity marketer who actually was one of the original founders, cybersecurity marketing con. She just posted about being present. It's not always about.
It's hard to do, but yeah.
It's so hard, but just to show up.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll show up messy and we'll figure it out. But the more often we show up, the more good moments that we have to remember versus, only showing up in key moments and hoping it's the best. I just so hit home for me today, and what you're saying is resonating. So, Alicia, it was Alicia and Kelly. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Carrie. This was so much fun. I feel like we could do this often, and I learned so much. I'd love it. So, I look forward to cheesesteak chat. We may need to rethink this now, but I very much thank you for the opportunity.
I'm so grateful for the conversation and for you. And to our listeners, thank you for joining this episode of Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode is brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps cybersecurity and data management platforms get found via SEO and digital ads. We've helped companies like Extrap, as I mentioned, grow to $900 million to get bought by Bain, and we're here to help you out. If you'd like to be a guest on Tea Time, I'd love to have you. DM me. Let's hang out. Have you on the show. And until next time, thank you all so much.